This is Valley Viewpoint. My name is Elias B. Whitman, and I was elected Walla Walla's first mayor in 1862. I'm glad to be here today with several folks from my time. We're all members of the Living History Company out at Fort Walla Walla. I'd like to ask each of my friends here to tell us about themselves, when they first came to Walla Walla. What about starting off with, well, first place, let me tell you who they are. Fred Stine, blacksmith, builder of the Stine House, now the Dakers Hotel. Dr. Nelson Blacklock, physician, orchardist, civic leader. My own wife, Maria Whitman, and as I said, my name is E.B. Whitman. Fred, let's start off with you. When did you first come here, and tell us about yourself?
Well, E.B., it was early spring, '62, that we made it into town. I've been in Wairika, California for several years. I had a little ranch there, and I ran my shop there too. But the summer of '61, you know, there was a whole lot of talk about the Clearwater River and a lot of gold, and I just knew, you know, that we had to make it up here to Walla Walla and be part of that. So it was late '61 that we got the ranch sold, and we headed off. We got the wagon loaded, but you know, '61 it was a cold winter. Boy, it was a cold winter. And we lost several teams just trying to get to Portland. And the winter was almost gone, you know, when we got to Portland. So we sold the team and the wagons, and we got passage on a steamer so we could make it into Walla Walla by spring. And what little money I had left, we did get some provisions bought. There was probably only about 6,400 pounds of steel we were able to bring on that steamer with us. And we got into Walla Walla here in March, but you know, the snow didn't leave until the 22nd.
Worst winter we ever had. We lost all but about 30 head of cattle in the whole valley that winter.
It was a tough one. And I got here, I only had about $75, but there were some friends here already that I'd known before, and I got some money borrowed, and I opened up my shop down on Main Street just off of 4th Avenue. And you know, it was just a few days. By the end of May, we had over 30,000 miners already through the Walla Walla Valley. Now you think, you know, 6,000 pounds, 6,400 pounds of steel will go a long ways, but you know, we had those miners, and you know, they need 3 or 4 pounds of steel to outfit them, and you know, the miners came really light. They had only one thing on their mind, and that was getting up to the Clearwater River and get a stake in the ground. So they didn't bring any supplies, but their bedding and some food. So we had to outfit them all. If they needed any rock hammers or picks or anything, we outfitted them right here out of the shop. But '62, she was a good year. We was only here about 6 months before I went home to see my folks there, but it was a really outstanding year to start off in this fine territory.
It was a great year. It was the year we got our charter from the territorial legislature, and it's the year that you, as you know, you elected me your first mayor. So, well, listen, Doc Blacklock, tell us when you got here and a little bit about yourself.
Well, I got here in 1873. I came from Illinois. I had gone to medical school at Jefferson College in Philadelphia. I entered in '59 and graduated in '61, but I had a real admirer out here, and that was old Marcus Whitman. Of course, he's gone now, but I wanted to see his country, so I bundled up my family. We came out here broke, but I made enough money hauling grain to the river and back to start an office in that new building, at the Days Reynolds building downtown, Reynolds Day building on Main Street. But I had other interests. I had a son. We got a couple businesses started one out here up on the Blue Mountains, had a logging operation, built a 28-mile flume along the side of the river so we could float our stuff down the river. We bought the first telephones in here in 1876. However, I could see the flume wasn't going to work because we were losing money, so I got interested in buying up some land for orchards. We bought 800 acres out here just south of town. We planted in pears, apples, and cherries. And we drilled, and we got 8 artesian wells, abundance of water. We gradually expanded that to about 1,600 acres. Well, the flume by 80 was going broke, and we closed her down with a $75,000 debt. But I was a civic leader. I was interested in this town, and I heard out here at Walla Walla College or Walla Walla Adventist Church out here, college place. They were going to start a college, and they were going to start it over there in Spokane. But I talked them into starting it here. I gave them 42 acres of land off of that orchard. And they guaranteed me, in fact, I put it in writing, they would not move that college for 25 years, at least. Well, they built Walla Walla College. Well, right now, I'm on the board at Whitman. I'm president of the board, actually. Been on it for 30-some years. Can you imagine this town with 2 great colleges? This is going to be a great future in this town. There's great crops growing here. We've got wheat growing. I also bought a lot of wheat land. Well, I'm happy. I made a lot of money on the wheat, and I'm making money on the orchards. Paid off my debt, and I'm happy.
Fine thing to have these colleges here. We owe you a debt.
Well, that
Nelson,
was a real hardship giving up 41 acres, wasn't it?
By the way, you know those buildings are still here, that Reynolds Day building? Did you
That's
notice
right.
Your visit here? It's still standing.
Still
It
standing.
kinda looks pretty nice.
It looks just like it did in those
In
days.
fact, I've seen a few of the timbers on your flume still there
Well,
in the Walla Walla Valley.
That flume was a lot of work, but it didn't make any money.
That lost you a lot of money.
Good idea, but did introduce the telephone to the valley.
Maria, my love, tell us about your arrival in this fine valley and a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you know, I arrived in 62 in the fall from Massachusetts. Elias had come 12 years earlier. He came out here to get gold the way everybody else did. You know, there was a saying at that time that there was such a strong pull to the west. People said if hell itself were out west, Americans would go right past heaven to get there. And it certainly was true. It certainly was true for Elias. I kept hoping that he was going to return
I went
back
to
to
that
Massachusetts.
hell of California in 50.
It was, yes, but you stayed a long time. I kept hoping that you were going to come back home. But when he arrived in Walla Walla and wrote that he had been elected mayor, I knew that he was not going to return to Massachusetts. And the boys and I came out around the Horn on a ship and arrived in the fall of '62. I will say this: I had never thought I was going to come out here, and when I arrived, I was quite sure that I understood why I had not intended to come out. This was certainly the ends of civilization at that time. You must remember coming from New England to this little town that was basically one long, straggly dirt road. And in fact, when I got there, it was a mud road with little one-story wooden buildings along it. Was not what I was accustomed to. It certainly has changed in the intervening years, and it was certainly a shock the first time I saw it. I think that that's enough.
Well, folks, we're these 3 folks and I, together with another dozen folks from the 1800s, come out to Fort Walla Walla at the museum every Sunday. At least one of us is out there. The last Sunday of the month, you'll find all of us, many of us out there. We'll even have music. What are some of the things you like to talk about when you are talking to modern day people here in the 1990s about our time? Fred, what are some of the things you like to expound on?
Well, you know, those early years, I really enjoyed the politics. Oregon got off to a good start in a statehood, you know, before Walla Walla even had, you know, the first ramshackle shack. But us here that came early to Walla Walla, there was a lot of men with dreams, and we pushed right on to statehood. And the political climate in early territorial of the territory here is just exciting for me. And of course, our drive to statehood, that took a lot of our time.
You're a political man, Fred.
Well, the folks here, they put me on city council, and I was in the territorial legislation and master of the lodge. We did about everything.
I guess to handle politics, it helps to be able to smash a piece of steel now and then to kind of get those aggressions out. Is that right? So you're...
Well, we did put a lot of steel together, you know. A lot of people think, you know, all we did was shoe horses. Well, there were a lot of horses we shoed, you know, and a lot more mules. But it's the tools and things that help the men out. Aggression, I don't know if I got my aggression out through there. It was more fun. It was more fun for us to watch this city grow. You know, when I built the Stine Hotel, that just made my heart good to see that hotel go up. Solid brick too, you know. We didn't waste no money on that. Those windows came right in from France. I wanted to see something real substantial come here to this town, and so we started that in right about 72 and finished her up 74. Of course, I never did run her.
A bit of it's still there, though. You know,
Yes.
You had the fire, but, well, Doc, what about you? What do you like to talk about when you're out there at the museum on Sundays and the folks come out? Can they talk to you, by the way, or are you the only one that does the talking?
Both. But I like to stay in the age that I was in. I like to stay back 100 years, and I like to tell people what happened out there. Of course, I practice medicine. You understand that, too. And they tell me, I guess I haven't counted a long time, but I delivered some 5,000 to 6,000 babies in this town. But I look back and think what's happened over the past 100 years. The first vaccine was smallpox in 1796. Well, I graduated from medical school in 1861. And at that time, of course, we had smallpox vaccination. But in 1840s, a guy down in Georgia discovered ether. And I like to tell people this story because many mothers get upset with their children. And so I tell this story. In those days, they had ether frolics. And down in Georgia, there's a little town of Jefferson, Georgia, a guy by the name of Crawford Long. And he went to an ether frolic one night. This is the kids sniffing ether.
You got to come out to the museum to hear the end of this story. Doc tells it very well. It's one of the, you'd think he was subject to that laughing.
See, no, he didn't
gas
want to hear that
sometimes.
story.
I want to hear from Maria.
You've heard
Maria,
it.
what do you like to tell folks when you get back in these later days here?
Well, of course, I love to answer any questions that people have, but what is often very interesting to people is to realize that when I came out, which was in '62, that was the middle of the Civil War. And I had come from Massachusetts, which of course was a strong Union state, and also a strong abolitionist state. And when I got to Walla Walla, it was rather shocking, if you can imagine, coming out to some place where the war, I mean, it figured in the newspaper, people talked about it, but it wasn't quite so central as it was where I had come from. And the attitudes, of course, were a little different here from what they were in Massachusetts. I remember hearing the Reverend Eels say that he was concerned in his own church to even give a prayer for President Lincoln because he was afraid that it would create dissension among his congregants.
That was the Congregational Church,
That
folks.
It was
There was some
certainly a
rebel
different scene
sentiment
for me.
around this area, as well as some Union sentiment. So
Yes.
the folks were
Well, the
divided.
newspaper was Union at that time. The Statesman was taking Union positions. But that was very interesting for me, how different it could be, and yet we all called ourselves Americans.
You know, I came here myself 3 years before Maria in '59, and I like to talk about that the town was just opened. The Indian Wars had just ended, and the first time the whites were let back into this side of the mountains. And I like to talk about what Walla Walla looked like that first year. There were only 7 buildings when I rode into town in July, 7 shacks. And I even like to talk about what happened earlier. My cousin Marcus Whitman, when they came out with Narcissa and the Spaldings in '36, first white settlers in the valley, first white women across the continent, how they fought old Marcus was a patriot too, how they fought to win Oregon for the United States. It was jointly owned with Britain at that point, jointly claimed, and trying to establish their settlement and mission with the Indians. These were exciting days. They were exciting days, and when you're talking about, Fred, when all these miners headed to town, and it was trouble, folks, trying to enforce some law and order around here. I served as sheriff for a little while. It was a thankless job. We had no jail to speak of. It finally devolved into vigilante committee, And these were sorry times. I'm sorry to say we'd come to downtown for breakfast, and we'd see who was strung up that morning on the streets for several years. So there are a lot of very dramatic things happening, trying to establish ourselves in this land where all things were far and few between. We were trying to share the land still with the Indians. The reservation policy wasn't very popular with them, but we guaranteed them they'd always have rights all over this territory to fish and hunt free of anything, and I'm sure those rights are fully respected today. So we have a lot of things to talk to you about, folks. You've got a wonderful museum out there, by the way. You've preserved a lot of these things from our time. You've got buildings. Come on out, see the museum, talk to folks like these and others. You can ask any question you want. If you wanted to know what life is like in 1865, ask old Fred here. Very glad to have been invited, all of us here today. Thank you again, and come on out to the Fort Walla Walla Museum and talk to us some more.